All right, guys, welcome to the Get Bent Podcast, the podcast for blurs, for nerds. If you have a fandom, you are most certainly welcome here. I'm your host of the most, Will Buchanan, aka Black Spartan. Of course, the man to my left, your right, speaking on your screen is flipped. What do you have for us today, sir?
Something to do with Night City and Cyberpunk 2077, Joe Tonello. I've done nothing but play that. I have now learned more idioms from that game than everywhere. I know what a choom is. I know what a gonk is. I know that I can hack somebody from 40 feet away without them noticing me. And I look good in all my outfits.
Oh, yes. Cyberpunk, once they figured out all the bugs, Cyberpunk 2077 is actually a great game. And I cannot wait for Phantom Liberty. But as you can see, guys, together we are the Get Bent Podcast. Much like the WWE old guys, there is choice language. We don't cuss much, but choice language all the same. And at the same time, guys, there may be trailers that may be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, but viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, we start off, guys, usually on a happier note, but unfortunately, we do have some sad news to report. One of our most beloved figure of our time, Paul Reubens, also known as Pee Wee Herman, did pass away at 70 years old. For a lot of us, especially me of Joe's age and those a little bit older than us, we do remember the man who literally made a gray suit, white shoes, and a red bow tie, and he made it famous. Keep in mind, this guy not only was known for his Pee Wee Playhouse, but for the number of actors that this man has actually had throughout his Playhouse, especially those like of Lawrence Fishburne, Phil Hartman, and then of course the list goes on. And you think about how many people have actually came through Pee Wee's Playhouse, and of course his revived Broadway play that also happened as well. But the best way we can honestly honor him, for a lot of people who don't know what Pee Wee Herman is, Pee Wee Herman is known for a lot of things. However, his iconic claim to fame is that this man literally went to a biker bar on top of a table in white shoes and danced a dance that to this day will forever be in our hearts. And he came out of that biker bar unscathed.
But he didn't find his bike.
Yep, tequila indeed. Again, the only man who could put on clocks, step at a biker bar, break glass, and have everybody in the crowd on his side, and he walked away unscathed. Rest in peace, Paul Reubens. We will certainly miss you. Joey, anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, you just grow up with him, and it's just one of those sad things. It just makes you remember how old you really are in the grand scheme of things. My beard is getting grayer as we talk.
Join the club, sir. Silver hair.
No, I mean, some of the new kids, some of the younger kids, the older Gen Zs, they know who Pee Wee is too, because I believe Pee Wee played on Adult Swim for a little bit.
Yeah, he did.
We didn't get this. They didn't get the Saturday morning version. We did. They got the
more
the Taco Bell nights. It's like,
Pretty
let's
much.
get some taquito burritos and turn on some Pee Wee.
Pretty much. But yeah, he will certainly be missed because that man truly was a national treasure. But
I learned about Gamera from his buddy Hoshi.
Gamera. Oh Lord, that song is catchy as all get out. But switching gears for a second, guys, we do have a little bit of news. Remember, Everybody Hates Chris. Literally a show that came on a network that nobody was watching, but yet because of repeats in YouTube, had a sudden reemergence and actually was funny. Well, Chris Rock has doubled down and said that now Everybody Still Hates Chris. Will be an animated reboot. This was reported by Blex Media that Chris Rock will have a straight-to-series order. This will also be on MTV. That'll premiere on both Paramount Plus and Comedy Central. So again, that's really the news that we have here. Chris Rock will still narrate his own show. However, as far as the additional voice cast, we don't know yet. Would I love to see Tachina Arnold and Terry Crews all come back? Absolutely, because let's be honest, Terry Crews really got his breakout role on Everybody Hates Chris. And Tachina Arnold, she is an accomplished actress in her own right. I would love to see her come back and go ahead and play back as Chris's mom. And of course, Tyler James Williams, who is doing completely awesome on Abbott Elementary. We'll see what happens from there. I'm not against it because, again, I thought Everybody Hates Chris was great. I would like to see what they do with the animated side of things. But Joe, what do you think?
I mean, I watched it for quite a while until UPN just like decided to put it at weird times, letting you know it's like, well, this is not long for the world.
Pretty much.
Terry Crews, for me, it's this show and Brooklyn Nine-Nine is what made Terry Crews. I still don't know why it's Mike Coulter over Terry Crews for Luke Cage, but it could be a size thing because Terry Crews is not a tall dude, is he?
Oh, he's a big dude.
Okay.
Terry Crews is about
still,
6'5".
why is he just not Luke Cage over Mike Coulter?
You know, the funny thing is about Terry Crews, Mike Coulter is only 6'2". Terry Crews is 6'5". So that I never understood it. Because I thought about it, Terry Crews could have played Luke Cage, but he also could have played like so many other ones. Like I would love to see him play as Diamondback. That would have been interesting. But again,
is this a Winston scenario where Ernie Hudson goes to for voice casting for the real Ghostbusters and tell him he's not the right voice for Winston Zeddemore, and he's like, but I am Winston Zeddemore.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but we're still going to give it to Arsenio Hall no matter what.
Pretty much. But I always thought about that. I mean, I still say he could do it, but it depends on the powers that be at Disney right now with the SAG-AFTRA strike still going on, which we'll talk about later because two superhero stars decided to go a different route about it.
I think one's just mad because his movie didn't do good.
Oh, he'll still be mad. Well, let's blame the writers. Don't blame us. But switching gears again for a second, guys, because we do have some news. I know we haven't talked about wrestling on here in a long time, even though SummerSlam, which is tomorrow. Thank you, Joe. Which is tomorrow. And we usually try to keep up with wrestling. Although with WWE right now, it's a little murky. AEW seems to be doing great. AEW Ring of Honor seems to be doing great, especially with their production with New Japan. But the story that we have here, because I don't know what it is about the WWE, but for some odd reason, real life seems to be better than the actual scripted shows they play. What I mean by that is, as of this week, former CEO, and I say former because this man is literally the arch villain that we wanted to see in movies, but he really is in real life. Vince McMahon has been served with a federal grand subpoena and a search warrant. Now, we also need to stress very heavily, this is not related to the allegations of sexual misconduct in which he paid hush money to former WWE employees. As the story goes, they submitted their quarterly reports to the SEC, and shortly after that, they decided to go ahead and serve him with a search warrant. Now, I do have to stress heavily, Vince McMahon is not under any type of charges or indictments. they heavily believe that this man may have information on other crimes. Now, if I've learned from every mob movie, if you know something, you're going to either turn state's evidence or you're going to come up missing. And the strange thing about this is Vince McMahon supposedly had spinal surgery. So right now, the subpoena can't even be served because he's quote unquote recovering. The thing is, no one has heard of Vince McMahon actually having back problems or anything of that nature leading up to his surgery, which leaves a cloud of reasonable doubt. And here I am saying this is a better storyline than the Bloodline right now. But it's one of those things, and I keep saying this from a wrestling standpoint, and then I'll toss off to Joe. Vince McMahon is one of those guys that, yes, we are forever grateful for the product of the WWF, WWE that you created. We are forever grateful for the Attitude Era. We are forever grateful for you and Bischoff creating the Monday Night Wars. You have given us countless stars that have came through. There is also some stars that have been on Dark Side of the Ring that have had negative things to say about Vince McMahon. And of course, who can forget the infamous steroid trial between the U.S. government and Vince McMahon, and he still treated that like a promo on his own show. That being said, I think that when Vince McMahon had left, it was that WWE was actually better for it. I still believe that Triple H had the right direction as far as everything that he was doing at the time. It was just the fact that, for a guy that created something, he would rather destroy his own product than let someone else run with it. But again, we will see what these allegations go to from here. But Joe, any thoughts on that?
I mean, we did learn that his spinal surgeon was Isaac Yankem, DHD. So there was that.
Isaac Yankem, DHD. Well done. Well, I thought you were going to go with the bad news. I thought you were going to go with Bad News Barrett, but well done. I thought you were going to go with that.
You don't know who that is, people. He is currently the mayor of Knox County.
Just wow. Just to see Kane walk up to him, I'm afraid you have a problem. Wade Barrett, I'm afraid I have some bad news.
Wade Barrett just went to Congress like, just give it to me. I know what to do.
I mean, just out of all things, that would have been funny as all get out. But other news that we want to get to, again, this actually is good news. And I was really surprised for this going to DC for a second. In the world of DC, of course, James Gunn and Peter Serafian are running the show. They have kicked out, I won't say they've kicked out, they've put a wall between them and Warner Brothers executives. Whereas we've always wanted that to happen because for some odd reason, Warner Brothers executives believe that their ideas work over common sense. And that's why a lot of their movies bomb. But with that being said, there is some news that Gal Gadot herself has brought up that she has already reported that even though with the strike going on, she did report that Wonder Woman 3 is back on with Gal Gadot as she will be working with Peter Safran and James Gunn on the actual movie. As of the moment, Patty Jenkins may or may not be involved with this. That's kind of a murky area. Some say that she's not going to be in it. Some say that she is. As of this moment, it has not been confirmed. And they also didn't say where Wonder Woman would be at this point. They're not sure if it's going to be the Wonder Woman that picks up from the Snyder from Wonder Woman 84, or if it's going to be kind of a soft reboot telling to where it fits James Gunn's DC Studios universe. For me, I love Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I mean, I love the first Wonder Woman movie. Wonder Woman 84,
the mall scene, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, Wonder Woman 84 as a whole just ran too long, and there was some questionable stuff. But still, it was an okay movie. I mean, Pedro Pascal still, he did his best. I will say that. But for me, I'm all for it. Gal Gadot, I believe, is the Wonder Woman going forward, and the fact that she is basically immortal makes her casting legit for the DC universe. But Joe, what do you think?
I mean, I'm down for it. I believe Patty Jenkins just needs to stay in the director's chair now, the writer's room. Uh-huh. That was the biggest issue with the last movie. She wrote it.
Yeah.
And that turned into an unsufferable mess of, if I hug you from across the state, I'm technically hugging you through particles.
Right.
Yeah. I read a lot of comics, and that's a little bit too far-fetched even for me. And I've read classic Excalibur. Or the blah-ha-ha era of Justice League in general. So no, I'm really, really excited for this. I am more than okay with her coming back as Wonder Woman.
Mhm.
I'm even happy if she comes back as like Hippolyta, and they do cast a new Wonder Woman, and she's like, "Okay, your
And
turn."
And I would be happy with that too. I would be okay because that's a new direction. Now, again, this doesn't take away from the fact that we're looking forward to Blue Beetle. Can't wait to actually watch that movie, but really see what Gunn is doing. And again, Gunn is very much a hands-on type of guy because if there's any information that comes out, he either is going to confirm it or he's going to shoot it down with a quickness.
So the only problem I have with this, and it's not even really a problem, it's a concern, is Gal Gadot is about to undertake a movie which is very cursed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am terrified for this woman at the moment. For those unaware, the Curse of Cleopatra is a very real thing. Please go Google it, as it has nearly crippled a studio and several actors in its original making, and that's why we don't see a lot of Cleopatra movies.
Pretty much.
Is the Curse of Cleopatra is a real thing. It's like the Curse of Superman.
And that's the thing a lot of people don't understand. It's like there are certain movies out there that one
just don't do anymore.
Pretty much only because they have certain curses around them. Cleopatra is definitely one of them.
Why do you think we haven't had a resurgence of Dick Tracy except for that one commercial? Disney's still sweeping up the cinders from that lot fire.
Jesus, that you brought that back. Jesus.
Also, no one should need to watch Madonna act.
Oh, you didn't like Don't Cry for Me, Argentina?
Oh no, that's a little bit different. That's a musical. She belongs there. But if it's straight acting, no, don't do it.
Fair enough. But
as Consuelo once said, no. You do not need to watch.
Oh, but speaking of things, Joe found this because he's kind of had to be under wraps and has made some impulsive purchases, which probably explains the next trailer. Joe, do you want to explain before I play it?
Okay, so we are looking at new Toku every year. I kind of give you guys a heads up. I let you guys know about King Oger, Ultraman. Blazar is going fantastically. It's really fun to listen to Johnny and Bosch do Ultraman yells. It's actually really funny, and a fun pseudo comedy series. It walks that very nice tight line between very serious and somewhat comedic. You learn very small things in the background, like the main character is like married with a kid, and this is just a day job for him, and his night job is sometimes being Ultraman, depending on when the monster decides to show up. But it's one of those small things. But this time we're talking about this year's Kamen Rider because last year's Kamen Rider Geats, which was a show about battle royales that constantly have the fate of the world and change the fate of the world every 15 episodes.
What's up, Bond?
So that's getting ready to come to a close at the end of this month, and then next month we'll be hopping into, no pun intended, Kamen Rider Gotchard, which surrounds a series of monster cards. We are getting card-based Kamen Rider again, who is going to be a high-score genius alchemist who, with a buckle, which I immediately pre-ordered and paid off, decided to is going to be fighting against the evilness of mankind when used Ride Kimi cards.
This is why I say me and Joe are in the same boat when it comes to impulsive buys. But here's the trailer.
You leave me alone. It was $100, but it was worth it.
本番組「仮面ライダーガッチャード」9月3日日曜午前9時スタート。ホッパーはスチームライドガッチャンコ。新番組「仮面ライダーガッチャード」制作発表は8月9日水曜日正午ウェブにて配信決定。みんなガッチャしてね。
That looks like that's going to be interesting. So that's guys is Kamen Rider Gotcha. Which
That suit looks clean. I'll say that.
you ain't lying. I will say that.
They did reveal the new either secondary rider or evil rider Valve card who uses a gigantic wrench sword.
Uh-huh.
It kind of looks like a Kingdom Hearts Keyblade, giant. Like if they go to Steamboat Willie and it turns into like a giant wrench, but it may also be a wrench shotgun. I mean, I don't know what clean lines he's looking at, but okay. It was $100 and it was worth it.
Leave it to Vaughn. Leave it to Vaughn. But go ahead, Joe.
I don't know how to follow that one up, but yes. So yeah, so we get a look at our two main characters at the moment. Not much is really known beyond that. The proper site is up, so if you just Google Kamen Rider Gotchard, you'll be able to find all the info. They have not yet announced cast, which is pretty unusual. We usually get that press conference right around this time, but I think because Evo is currently happening right now.
Yep.
We did just watch a blind man win good into the winners pools. So much love on that one. But no, I'll look forward to it. I'll try to keep up with it. I already kind of fell off Kamen Rider Geats, but see if I can't catch back up. I'm not a big battle royale person. That's why I fell off of there.
Gotcha. One of these days I am going to catch an Evo tournament in Vegas. One of these days. But other news, guys, that we have, because you guys have heard that PS5 may be coming out with a slimmer console. Xbox also rumored to come out with another console. Nintendo decided they didn't want to be left out. They're going to be bringing out a next console for the second half of the 2024 year. Now, keep in mind, the Switch, for most consoles, they're usually around for a good decade before they reach what they call end of life. It's starting to happen with the PS4 and it's starting to happen with the Xbox One as games are not being produced for them anymore. So, which means that once game starts falling off, support will stop falling off, and then altogether they just completely sandbag it. Now, the one thing I'll get about the Switch hasn't been around for almost a decade, and yet, I guess like I said before, Nintendo doesn't want to be left out. Now, don't get me wrong, the Switch in itself is a great console. It really did give Nintendo a boost in sales because number one, Switches did not run into the same problems as PS5s and Xbox Series X did, which is one thing I will say about Nintendo. They know how to keep their inventories up. And second, the library along with the backwards game channels make the Switch worth playing. So the only thing I can think of out of this is that Nintendo just wants to keep up with the crowd and basically bring a new console. But for me, I'm still going to happily play my Switch just because it really has everything I want right now. And Nintendo's going to have a big problem because with most new consoles, you do have to have some type of exclusive or big game around it to actually generate buzz, which at this point, Nintendo hasn't announced. But like I said, it's early because they just announced it as of the 31st. So I'm guessing as we get toward the 2024, I should say second half, which means that more than likely they're going to be targeting Christmas 2024. We'll probably get more news and probably something showing at Summer of Games or the Video Game Awards that year. But I don't see the reason for it. But Joe, what do you think?
I mean, do you see the reason for it? I don't see this as the Switch 2. I see this as like the Switch Pro. I believe what they're wanting to do is the dock mode to be the handheld mode and the dock mode to be, well, what I mean by that is dock mode is usually solid 30 at 1080p. And then you're down to locked 30, sometimes locked 30, depending on the game, 30. Nintendo should ever have to play catch up with their catalog. No, that's entirely true, Chris.
That's true.
No, what it is though is you are seeing some games with frame rate, a lot of their bigger titles with frame rate issues now.
Fair.
Because what they're attempting to accomplish with a lot of their games is just you can tell it's really pushing the Switch. Whoever did the optimization, and I think it was the people that did Xenoblade 3,
Yeah.
Helped with the optimization of Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
They
it's the
needed
same
that
engine.
optimization problem,
Yeah.
optimization systems. But if you look at like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which I love those games, but sometimes that it gets
Well,
choppy in the background.
the problem is, and I get where Vaughn is saying with the Switch feeling so underutilized. The Switch itself is based on a nano SD processor, which means that yes, it can process games at a very high rate at a very good frame rate. But the problem is, as games get more intensive on the graphics side, resources, unfortunately, the Switch at that moment wasn't built for that.
Right.
That's always been the problem with the Switch. Yes, it's compact, but it doesn't have the same processing power as its counterparts do. Which you would think if you're building games in that situation, you would have to scale down the games in order for the hardware to actually handle it. Otherwise, you're just going to have the crisis problem all over again. You're going to build a game that nothing can play. But again, it's one of those things where it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Like I said, we have a whole year before we actually hear any more news about it. I'm still waiting on Metroid Prime 4 because Metroid Dread was a great Switch game, but come on, Nintendo. At this point, either give me a Punch-Out game or give me a Metroid game because I'm not mad about the how can I put this ever so nicely? I'm okay with Mario games coming out all the time, but there are other games in the Nintendo library that really either need a resurgence, a reboot, or just flat out something new. I mean, you have an entire NES library, and I'm not just talking Zelda games. Don't get me wrong. Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. To me, you're not going to beat that, especially with the fact of how many people love Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. But again, it's just one of those things where Nintendo should really be like Sega and jump on the fact of their library and focus more on the games and less consoles, because that's how Sega stayed alive. Sega hasn't put out a console since the Dreamcast, but they put out multiple IP titles across many of their consoles and still made money.
Well, that's an interesting point because at this point, Sega is no longer the house that Sonic built. Sega is now the house that Dojima built.
Pretty much.
And Sega right now really only has two IPs that they lean on, and that's Sonic and Yakuza. So they're not too far off from the Nintendo thing. The Switch, what I think they're wanting to do with the Switch is handheld mode is going to be 1080p locked at 30. And then you dock it 4K resolution at 60 frames, 60 to 30 frame variable on the game. Because we're also looking at, if you think about it, like the Switch, a lot of these games are not going anywhere. We're not getting sequels anytime soon. Sakurai recently went on an interview and goes, I'm not doing another Smash Brothers. Like, I'm done. I gave you guys 100 characters. That is the definitive version of Smash. You're never getting another Smash.
And really, I mean, after Ultimate, where can you go after Ultimate? I agree with him. Where can you go?
If you're like every other fanboy in the world, Goku.
But
also the other thing, we're never getting another Mario Kart at this rate either because Mario Kart continuously updates.
Yeah. So it's like there's some, don't be wrong, there are some games that you just cannot, once you've hit that peak, that's it. I completely understand that. Yeah. But it's just like there are some games out there that, I mean, like there was, I'll even give one where there was rumors of a new Contra. I'm like, I'm okay with that because Contra was one of those games that made, one of the top NES games. And they've had multiple resurgences of that game out there. And its counterpart, Metal Slug, I would be happy playing those. Or you could even, well, they've already done that with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Shredder's Revenge, which also great game if you haven't played it. Well,
yeah, I saw they put in the Rise models.
That too. I would be completely okay with that. But I'm just saying Nintendo does have this humongous library that they could really go focus on and just give us the games that we asked for. Like for me, Killer Instinct, Killer Instinct's more of an Xbox title, but I would love to see another Killer Instinct. We're seeing all these fighting games coming out. There hasn't been another Killer Instinct since its resurgence back on the Xbox.
I mean, we just have to be realistic. Like, there are certain games that are just never coming back. We're never getting an F-Zero because they have more money. They make more money with Mario Kart.
I never understand that concept. F-Zero was great.
F-Zero was also meant. The other thing I think why we don't see an F-Zero, and this is just me personally, is that day and age is gone. I see F-Zero as a rented at Blockbuster game and feel the sense of accomplishment of beating at least 5 tracks.
Okay.
Versus going around at breakneck speed. That's why we haven't seen any wipeouts for so long. Like, now that we can continuously do that, and for multiplayer, we are not, those types of like hyper fast games just are like shuttered down to the indie market. Mm-hmm. It's all about being able to not really keep up, because you can most certainly thrash somebody utterly and totally in Mario Kart. But now it's more of the party experience versus the competitive experience. You want F-Zero, you go to the arcades.
But that's the thing about it. I mean, arcades are so few and far in between now. And honestly, you do have a point, because Burnout is still one of my favorite racing games. And after Burnout Paradise, there's really nowhere else you can go after that. So I mean, you have a fair point.
I mean, the other thing I can think of, Star Fox. Well, Star Fox is in video game jail because of the Wii U thing, and also for the fact the only thing they can ever do for Star Fox is remake Star Fox 1 over and over and over again, and just add new things to it, like Star Fox 1, but now you can be a tank or a sub. Star Fox 1, but now you can be a tank, sub, chicken walker. Star Fox 1, but tank, sub, chicken walker.
But the thing about it is,
Rogue Squadron you can fight on a constant basis. But it's still Star Fox 1, mostly.
Right. But you would think that with Star Fox, it should be a trilogy. Like, you had to get the mini NES to play the Star Fox 2 game that was never released in the US. Like, you had to get that to play the import. So that's why I was like,
it goes back to the same mentality. I think it goes back to the same mentality as F-Zero, because we don't have that many Starfighter things. The reboot for X-Wing versus TIE Fighter did not do that great.
Right. They didn't put a lot behind it.
A Rogue Squadron, like those types of dogfight games just aren't popular like they used to be anymore.
Yeah, and also Tavon's point, new Donkey Kong.
That'll happen. Like, they have got to make a Tropical Freeze 2 at some point.
Yeah, like that. I think, again, for a generation that doesn't know Donkey Kong Country, or just or the fact that there was once a Donkey Kong game that you could play with just the bongos and you could put them anywhere. I mean,
which, by the way, you can beat Dark Souls using only the Donkey Kongas. That's
funny. Or Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Man.
That might be questionable. But speaking of games, guys, I do want to show a little bit of this, because I do love mech games. It's kind of been a while since I was actually seeing a good one outside of Gundams. Although Gundam Evolution is great. Enjoy it while it lasts. Yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. But another game I haven't played in a very long time, only because the first one was great, and then every introduction after that just didn't live up to the hype. Armored Core. Now, if you have not seen the latest for Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon, let me play a little bit of the gameplay for you and see if it changes your mind.
Overwhelm enemies with up to 4 weapons simultaneously, equipped to each arm and shoulder.
Liberation front. If we get in the way of our work, eliminate them. Picking up signals from AC Rex. Follow the markers.
Assault Boost is one of the core abilities at your disposal, used for both traversal and combat.
Did you hear anything about what the Corps are up to?
Yeah, they'll be coming soon. You got us on the run. We're being attacked!
Identified AC! Return fire!
Take full advantage of your AC's mobility to freely navigate the environment. Use boost to take the fight to the air, extending combat dimensions beyond the 2D plane.
Is that an independent? Destroy it!
You're outnumbered 6-1. Use your missiles.
Use vertical catapults to gain even more altitude and launch into the action from above. Against tougher enemies, deal impact damage to their attitude control system to temporarily put them out of action. This is called stagger. Any attack received in this state is considered a direct hit, dealing heavy damage.
Okay, so I'm just gonna stop it right there because, guys, it is 13 minutes, but at the same time, I like it. I'm looking forward to it just because it has an Anthem feel to it because of the whole 3D and flying around like Iron Man. But the graphics, the gameplay has changed. I've noticed that every game now has stagger. You noticed that, Joe? Almost every other game actually has a stagger to where you can do more damage. But I like it. Like I said before, if you were at San Diego Comic-Con, or if you were lucky enough to go, there were people there that got to get a hands-on demonstration of it. Of course, if you go to various channels, you see their reactions from it. But for me, I'm sold. I just need to get an upgraded system in order to play it. Otherwise, I'll have to wait for it to come to PC. But Joe, what did you think of Armored Core 6?
I mean, I'll definitely want to give it a shot. I've always been a fan of the Armored Core thing. I really, really dug Daemon X Machina, which is basically just Armored Core on the Switch.
Yeah.
Just a bit more anime enthused, but still and very incoherent to follow sometimes. I couldn't follow that storyline to save my life in that game.
No, but
no, you're fighting against these people. Next mission, by the way, we're your best friends now. Next mission, by the way, we're fighting against you again.
Pretty much. So
that's just Armored Core in general.
Yeah, it was a little off. I will say that. But again, we don't have news on when it'll be released. Like I said before, it's still kind of in the development stages, but we will follow that news as it comes out. But speaking of things, I'm trying to figure out how to say this because Joe has seen this. I haven't. So I don't know, Joe, should I play it first or do you want to give the description of what's about to be shown?
Okay, so this is episode 9 of Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is the Anson Mount pseudo Star Trek prequel involving the cast and crew of the Enterprise prior to Kirk taking over the Enterprise. This episode, this season has been very peculiar because they are trying different show styles throughout. We had a sitcom style where Spock was turned human as his impending fiance's mother-in-law. The impending mother-in-law come down and shenanigans happen. We've had an Aliens episode featuring the Gorn. We've had a crossover episode with our favorite Star Trek show, Lower Decks, where Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome, who play Mariner Beckett and Brad Boimler, cross over into the live-action universe. Fantastic, and I only wish that Rutherford and Tendi came with, because that would have made it even better. But, so this time around, we get the musical episode, which is a long-honored tradition in a lot of television, which means if you've hit the musical episode and still going, you're doing something right. Just like Buffy. Can't wait for the Muppet episode. But anyway, so we hit the premise is they've hit some sort of bizarre subspace rupture, and shenanigans ensue, causing the entire Star Trek universe to become a musical for a bit, including the Klingons.
This a Klingon.
Will has not seen this.
I haven't seen this, but all I heard was Klingon boy band. Enjoy it.
Roll it.
Why have you?
Why you only calling us when you got your dramas? One of these days we'll repay you, we'll slay you. Gonna draw your last breath at the end of my glance. Your eternal torture is every Klingon dream. You know what I mean? Make the blood scream!
There is no words. There is no words for what I just saw. Oh man.
Well, you can watch that and the rest of the season over on Paramount Plus. It's also for very Uhura heavy theme this season. A lot of stuff deals with Uhura, which rightfully so. She does a fantastic job honoring Nichelle Nichols. She's one of my favorite cast members. I will say, despite the fact that we did have Klingon boy bands, the lounge music involving Nurse Chapel was probably my favorite song in the entire episode.
I think I'll make that the title of this episode, Klingon boy bands. I'm going to go back and change the title of this episode to Klingon boy bands. But yeah, I still got to catch more Strange New Worlds.
Now we've done this, and now all I can think of is a Ferengi a cappella group.
A Ferengi a cappella? You know what? I wouldn't be wrong. That would actually be interesting. But no, Strange New Worlds again is going to be is going to be definitely a good one. I know I've watched one episode. I just have to catch up. Just because I know Discovery will have its final season coming up on Paramount Plus. Can't bring myself to watch Picard the final season because man, there were so many tear jerkers in that series. But definitely, if you hadn't had a chance to really see the show, as Joe has pointed out, the Klingon boy bands, definitely watch Strange New Worlds and let us know what you think in the comments. We guys really want your opinion on that. But speaking of opinions, guys, we did show a while back the trailer for Twisted Metal, and I was right here next to Joe, and I had sat there and said, I have concerns. I didn't want to see it because one of my favorite wrestlers, Samoa Joe, was going to be the body of Sweet Tooth. Of course, Bill Hader actually plays the voice of Sweet Tooth. So again, that I thought, it was to not to spoil it, because I did binge watch the entire first season that's currently on Peacock right now. If you guys want to take a look at it, I will say it's worth it. It was completely different but it did have a crap load of Easter eggs. Doesn't matter if you played the first Twisted Metal. It doesn't matter if you played the last Twisted Metal or if you played Twisted Metal Black. If you're a fan of the series, you're going to recognize quite a lot within the 10 episodes of the first season. But I do like the twist that they did with this. It is definitely funny. It is definitely not for kids, although you would think I would have to say that in this day and age. But again, this is not for kids. I cannot stress this enough. Otherwise, if you let your kids watch it, you're gonna have some questionable conversations coming up. That's all I'm saying. But overall, it is definitely worth watching. I think between Anthony Mackie and Samoa Joe and others that are in this cast really made it worth watching. And again, if you have time this weekend, I definitely say check out Twisted Metal. You won't be disappointed. But Joe, have you had a chance to watch it, or are you on the fence about it?
Yeah, I don't have Peacock.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, it is definitely, I would say if you get a chance, it's definitely worth watching. But speaking of things that are worth watching, guys, I know we talked about, a little bit earlier in the show, we had talked about the SAG-AFTRA and the fact that we actually here at GetBit. We do stand with the actors and the writers just because they deserve their fair pay. They deserve their dividends from streams and purchases and things of that nature. And that, you know, if you're working for Hollywood, if you are literally the lifeblood that pushes these shows, that pushes these movies and things out of Hollywood and out of the motion picture business, then you definitely should be getting paid more for your craft. We wholeheartedly believe that. However, unfortunately, there are some actors who have a difference of opinion, I guess you can say. One of them being a surprising voice, Stephen Amell. If you remember him, he was the guy that played Oliver Queen on Arrow. Really did CW a favor in the ratings world, also restarting the Arrow, starting what was known as the Arrowverse at the time. Stephen Amell has came out recently and said that although he stands with the writers and actors of SAG-AFTRA, he says, quote unquote, I do not support striking. I think that it's a reductive negotiating tactic, and I find it incredibly frustrating. Well, he decided to double down on that. And yep, that's Twitter for you. Let's try it again.
And the ongoing strike that is happening.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm insulated in Hollywood because that's where I live. I literally live in Hollywood, like all the stereotypes that exist. So I feel like a lot of people in this room aren't aware of the strike. I support my union, I do, and I stand with them. I do not support striking. I don't. I think that it is a reductive negotiating tactic. And I find the entire thing incredibly frustrating. And I think that the thinking as it pertains to shows like the show that I'm on that premiered last night, I think that is I think that it is I think it's myopic, and I stand with my union.
So yeah, Stephen Amell, as you can see there, was at GalaxyCon when the question came up of whether or not he supports the show, where he supports the strikes, and he, for lack of better words, give the most half-ass answer I've ever seen an actor give. You support your union, but you say strikes are a useless tactic. The problem is, Mr. Stephen Amell, he is actually part of a show on Starz called Heels. Now, if you haven't seen Heels, again, it is a show about wrestling, about a wrestling promotion in the Southern region. Great show. Don't get me wrong. Great show, written very well. If you haven't had a chance to watch on Starz, give it a shot. We want to know your opinions as well. But the problem is that Stephen Amell is an executive producer on that show. He also has writing credits on that show. However, I find it very odd that Arrow would come forward and say, you know what? I think that, it's okay. I know what they're doing, but striking doesn't get you anything. When history would say otherwise, because if strikes didn't do well, we would still be back in 2001. When a certain show became a certain casualty. Lost and Heroes never recovered. That's the one thing that we say here on here on GetBit. We also say on Chris's show on Blurred's Eye View. Heroes will always be a victim of the writer's strike. Now you guys got to remember, everything that's out there now is all fine and dandy, but these are and Fran Drescher, which again I never thought I'd say this, but the nanny is the president of SAG-AFTRA, and she has sat there and said we are ready to go into 2024 about this. So they've already dug in. So again, writers and actors, you guys should get your work. You shouldn't have to worry about trying to pay bills, between paying bills and keeping rent and food in the house. Absolutely understand that. But from Stephen Amell, I think he was a little bit out of touch with this. And if he had a publicist, his publicist would have sat there and said, you support the union and shut up. because right now that's not going to help you with your own show, considering the fact that, well, they don't know where you stand. You flip-flop more than a pancake and IHOP right now.
I mean,
but Joey, you think?
That he supports his union and has a thesaurus.
Yeah, because he was it was a whole lot of reaching and searching for words in that note. And the thing about it is, again, it's for actors. Actors, really, for a lot of people don't understand, Hollywood, especially these motion picture companies, they control a lot.
To quote a WWE phrase, son, that's a $5 word coming out of a $2 mouth.
Pretty much. Poor Little Heroes. Yeah, Heroes was a great show, Vaughn, and then the strike happened and it never recovered. What's the last show or movie Fran starred in? Hey, she had the nanny and she ran with it. But the fact that she's the president, I mean, again, you've heard Fran Drescher talk that, and we've shown on here the contracts that they're negotiating for, and the fact that all they're asking for are pay bumps. The fact that they haven't asked for the things that they should be asking for, like royalties off streams, royalties off DVD purchases, royalties off syndication, because for every sitcom and movie, for every sitcom out there, the big thing is syndication. If you make it to 100+ episodes and get picked up off other networks, that's more payment for you. So again, I'm not against that, but to see Stephen Amell talk about that, the first thing that came to my mind was, you have failed this city. That's all I can think of. My mind goes right back to Oliver Queen going, you have literally failed this city, when it was easily a softball for you. But at the same time, he's not the only one. I don't know if I should refer to him as Shazam or whining Shazam. But Zachary Levi also does not like the strike that's going on, mainly put because of the rules. Now, again, there are rules in place for strikes. You cannot talk about any produced work that actors and writers can't talk about works they're producing in right now, because that's called struck work. So, in other words, think of it like plutonium. If you are around it, you can't talk about it, so therefore it's radioactive until the strike is over. Cool. I mean, seems easy enough, right? But these actors and writers still go to cons, which they should, because like all things, we want to be able to meet our heroes, meet our comic book writers, meet our artists, things of that nature, cosplayers. We should be able to do that. And I'm not stopping actors from doing that, because again, they make, aside from artists and other people, they make cons worth going to. Now, Zachary Levi was at a con, and well, he had some thoughts as well. And again, we shouldn't be surprised.
I'm not allowed to talk about, this is so dumb. I'm not allowed to talk about any of my previous work. I'm not allowed to talk about movies that I may be a superhero in. I'm not allowed to talk about TV shows that I may have been a nerd who worked at a Best Buy kind of amalgam. I'm not allowed to talk about any animated princess movies that I was fantastic in as the best prince ever. I'm not allowed to talk. I'm not allowed to talk about those things.
Yeah, he's not allowed to talk about it. And yet he talked about it. And again, this is the same guy who still to this day will say that Shazam! Fury of the Gods did not get the respect it deserves. And you can't blame the strike on that, sir. If anything you're going to blame Shazam! Fury of the Gods on, blame on the fact that it was not a great script as the first one was. But to me, this is why I don't get. You can be mad as an actor, but you join the union. That means that you agreed to whatever the union decides to do as a whole, because you have to come to a consensus on this. So if your union decides they want to strike and you can't talk about struck work, talk about other stuff. I mean, to me that seems so one-dimensional. To me, it's like you don't see. Case in point, I like using Supernatural as a example. You don't see Jensen Ackles, being mad that he can't talk about Supernatural right now, or being mad he can't talk about The Boys. So what does he talk about? He talks about his band. He talks about his music. He talks about other projects that are not dealing with Hollywood. And guess what? Everybody still loves him. In the same sense where you have Giancarlo Esposito, who is right now on the con tour for a guy who is beloved in various shows, and all he does is talk about his projects that are not related to Hollywood. So to Stephen Amell and Zachary Levi, guess what? It can be done. But you do seem quite salty, whether you agree with the strike or the fact you can't talk about certain things. And so now you seem kind of hateful. Is that the best way I can put it? Is that the best way I can put it, Joe? Sounds kind of hateful.
I recently rewatched an episode of Boy Meets World, and I have the perfect quote for this.
Go for it.
Life's tough. Get a helmet.
Why do I feel like I know exactly what episode, where that quote came from, and exactly what episode it did? But no, it's
Season
just
3, episode 2.
Oh, I was off by one. I was going to say episode 3, but my thing is, it's like, okay, so you can't talk about your work, but you still get paid for it. I mean, it's like Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson just finished Secret Invasion, and it's just like, we can't talk about it, but I'm good. The check cashed. I'll talk about anything else. And it just never ceased to amaze me that some actors are one-dimensional, where others are like, oh, there's plenty of other stuff I got going on. It's not, I can talk about that. But speaking of Samuel L. Jackson, I got to ask you this, Joe. Did you finish Secret Invasion?
Yes.
Okay, so before we get to comics, I wanted your opinion on that. What did you think of Secret Invasion?
It was fine. I mean, I knew what I was going into it. I knew it was a spy thriller. I understood it would be a long con. Wasn't quite sure why we had a Super Skrull super fight in the long run. I would have preferred if Gavik just got away injured and he was officially our Super Skrull. Except now we have not Lysra working for the British government.
And that makes me think. I was gonna say I thought they were gonna do the British version of the Avengers through her for a second. I thought that was coming, which it could still be. But I wanted your opinion because I know me and Chris and others talked about this. And for me, my point was because a lot of people gave it a low rating or gave it oh, this wasn't the show or superhero fatigue. And I was like, well, you guys got to understand, we're so used to shows having a beginning and end. We're not used to a show that has a continuance. It's like, it's not over. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, we saw Fury. I mean, we really got to see a whole lot more of Fury than we did in MCU movies. At the same time, the whole thing about Rhodey, being a Skrull, and the fact of the president turned out to be Ritson, turned out to be more MAGA than anything else.
And according to the director of the show, yes, it's confirmed Rhodey's been a Skrull since Civil War. That means the purple blood thing was finally added in towards the end.
Which is another thing that kind of bothered me as well as everybody else. If Rhodey was picked up during Civil War, because so many people, screenshots, frame rate slowed down, zoom ins, because everybody remembers when Rhodey was basically coming out of that rubble of the Avengers Center, and he was coming out of the rubble covered, literally bruised up and bloody. He's all red. Now, of course, with Skrulls, we're seeing purple blood. So the fact that we didn't actually see purple blood come out of Rhodey in Civil War, especially during that part where they got rescued by Ant-Man, it begs the question, are we being misdirected, or we're trying to sit there and say that it had to happen somewhere else along the lines?
I think they don't know what they're talking about, just like they do with the Captain America, where is he, in the timeline stuff.
Yeah.
So, in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. It's the director's opinion that Rhodey was taken during Civil War. You know what? That's fine. You make more money, and you're closer to Kevin Feige than I am. You're probably correct. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't care. Just let's see what Armor Wars gives me.
And that was another thing I was going to ask you about too, because now knowing that Rhodey was a Skrull, and now having a fixed point in time to where he may be unaware of what happened, does that change Armor Wars as far as now because of he being replaced by a Skrull and the fact that we don't know how much time has actually jumped between Civil War and Secret Invasion? So does that change how we feel about Armor Wars, or do we think there's going to be a difference here, or is this going to lead into the? Because for my opinion, really quick, I think it's going to lead into the next Cap movie. To me,
I mean, possibly. I wouldn't mind it leading into what are we calling it now? Is it Brave New World?
Brave New World, because
Okay.
New World Order sounded a little too close to the fatherland.
Oh, I thought it New World Order because we'd have to have a run-in from Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Hulk Hogan, and then hit people with belts, and then spray superheroes on their backs with spray cans.
Technically, we do have Seth Rollins in there as part of the Serpent Society, so that should be interesting. I know what you meant, but I was like, you know what? Huh?
It's because like we the Shield.
If he did do a Shield reference, we would no, let me shut up. I was gonna say Roman's gonna be like, dude.
So, anyways, now yes, I can definitely see Armor Wars leading into it. The sad thing about this is, and since we are gonna go off of what the director says, even though in the grand scheme of things, as I already said, I don't care. Just give me the next thing. That means Rhodey has no idea that Tony's dead and has to come to terms with his best friend dying.
Mm-hmm.
Being a honorary uncle just right out the gate with Tony's kid.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the whole landscape of superhero changing. There's no Captain America's a black guy, which is probably different for Rhodey.
Right.
Steve is no longer there to be a confidant. Thor's off being a dad. Just so much of the landscape has changed for Rhodey now that we know that he has not been available since Civil War. Like a whole planets have lived and died during his capture. So
right. So that's what's going to be so interesting about it. Like with Armor Wars being the next one to roll out with, it does make you think how they're going to. I mean, it does. We did have a fixed idea of how it's going to go, but now it's like, okay, so we have a vulnerable, probably more than likely ticked off Rhodey. At the same time, Stark technology is everywhere. So it is going to be interesting about Armor Wars, but I honestly cannot wait for that. But yeah. Aside from that, Joe, any other news we have before we go to comics?
no, not too much. Like I said, I've just been bouncing around a little bit of Street Fighter, a lot of Cyberpunk.
I still cannot wait for Phantom Liberty.
So
Phantom
much
Liberty looks like
Cyberpunk.
it's going to be awesome. But no, Phantom Liberty. Oh, I was say, how was Street Fighter? Because you got. Because I was going to ask about that. So how goes the record in Street Fighter 6?
Yeah, I'm back at Gold 3. I had a lucky
Nice.
night one night, bad luck night another night, another lucky night. So back where I started, but keep pushing. Probably be there for a
Nice.
while.
I have got to hurry up. I mean, I saw that Spider-Man PS5 and I was like, I would love to have it, but gotta hold off for a while. One of those things where you love to have it, but you gotta hold off for a little while. But as I see, sir, that you're queuing up as we get to our comics, so as soon as it pops up, we'll be ready to roll with that. And I think, let's see. Let me try it. Oh, still circling. There we go. Take it away, sir.
Hooray. Yep, so first off, we got Dark Droids. This is, as soon as I can hide this, we see here that Luke Skywalker with his yellow lightsaber is surrounded by, we'll go with zombie droids. I don't really know what to call it quite yet because it's literally, we just know at first it comes for the metal. Then we get the Star Wars scroll in an effort to stop the Galactic Empire, Lady Kira, because they're still using her after the Han Solo movie. Has gambled on an ancient device to disrupt the Sith's connection to the Force. She did not succeed in her failure. She wasted an ancient and deadly entity was released. First it comes for the metal, then it comes for everything else. And I forgot to delete that one picture. There it goes. This is written by Charles Soule. Well, that's why this is so good right off the bat. Art by Luke Ross, colors by Alex Sinclair, and lettering by Travis Lanham. Potential zombie virus in the Star Wars universe that only affects machines or something. We're not quite sure because they are still sentient, but it's one of those. The virus becomes the host and then continues to replicate outward. And unfortunately for them, the first person to pick it up is the Empire, which uses nothing but droids almost. To the point where a K2SO unit just like docks with goes back to a Star Destroyer. It's like, oh, well, they're all mine now.
Pretty much. But it was definitely interesting as far as that this organic to this techno-organic, I guess we call it a virus, just happens to be sitting on a planet, gets picked up by a droid, takes over said droid, and it's just like from there, it's like, oh, I am so hungry. And that's what made me think. It actually made me think of the Blob. I was like, wait a minute, is it basically an updated version of the Blob / the Thing, where it just constantly takes over hosts and gets bigger? Which, again, don't get me wrong, I loved it. Even to the point to where C-3PO may also himself be infected. But
he definitely is.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. He definitely is infected.
Yeah, how they get the Rebels is really cool. They get a Landa shuttle and just like hot drop a mouse droid in space and slingshot it over onto the Republican ships.
But here's so funny about this. I know we talked about this before the podcast started. I was like, how come this was never a story in Star Wars? You would think for all its heavy droid usage, you think that there would be a story about this.
I think it was at one point. Yeah, I think this is where one of Luke's like fantasy girlfriends that slowly became a real person. I think her name was Callista. I think she was part of an old like Sith super weapon that can infect droids or something with the Star Forge or something. It was one of Luke's girlfriends that never really panned out. Gotcha. I just remember her name was Callista. You'll have to look it up. I'm not sure if it's the same thing I'm thinking of or not, but yeah, so Droid Madness, and this is going to be going for like a good while, like at least 2 months worth, if I can.
Because I mean, I definitely do. I definitely like where this story is going. The fact that it's an enemy that neither the Empire nor the Republic nor the Resistance is really ready for. Considering the fact, like you said, it's heavy droid use on both sides.
This is going to December.
Oh, cool!
This is going all the way to December.
Oh, it's going to be a nice story then.
It's going to be a long, long story. I wonder if Vader's droid parts can be infected.
Ooh, well, Vader is part machine. He can be infected. Ooh, wow. An infected Darth Vader with force powers. That would be interesting.
It would be Anakin fighting himself constantly.
True. That would be interesting. Could he infect Darth Vader if Darth Vader is 80% machine? That does make for an interesting. It does make for a good story if told properly.
So yeah, we're not exactly sure what they mean by they are hungry, as we don't actually see. We do see them like kill every single human being in the Star Destroyer, but we don't see what they do with the body. So we don't know what hunger means quite yet. Hunger could just mean that it wants to continue to procreate and take over there as a DTI.
Yeah.
Okay,
I know what he meant. I know he was getting at.
Oh, a droid transmitted infection. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, we don't know what they actually do with the organic life once it's killed. I hope they're going to leave that as ambiguous as possible to keep the horror going, because they often entire Star Destroyer almost like it was nothing.
Pretty much, but that's what makes it so interesting. The fact that that the Empire themselves do not see how heavily dependent they are upon them, and that they can literally be taken out in a matter of minutes.
I like that the only droid that actually put up a fight was the mouse droid. It still lost, but that's the only thing that put up a large enough fight.
It tried, but he's like, there was some resistance, but it was quickly put out. Damn.
Pretty much.
But no, what's the story?
Moving on over, we got Steelworks number 3. This is written. Oh, yes. Next up in DC, we got Steelworks number 3. This is written by Michael Dorn, art by Sammy Basari and Vincentini Cifuentes, with colors by Andrew Dollhouse and Ulysses Ariala. This just continues the whole thing. Apparently, we learned that Natalie is slowly fusing with her armor, which is a bad thing. John Henry makes 0-point energy a realistic thing and needs to use it when Metropolis is attacked.
Right.
And shenanigans.
Wasn't 0-point energy World War Tech? World Tech?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
I think so.
Okay, because I thought that's what it was. That's why it sounded so familiar. But yeah, between that and of course, John still has this whole we don't want to be forced to depend on you, but we want to be able to defend ourselves. But I'm not alienating you, Superman. I'm not, I promise. And then Lana of all people, that was an interesting turn. The fact that that's why I was like, wait a minute. If she's exposed to 0-point energy, what's to keep her? And again, they have to explain that about her powers coming back.
Yeah, I will get on that one.
Because I was like, you're going to sit there and tell me World War Tech actually brought Lana's powers back when we thought they were gone? Okay, I'm not against it. It's 0-point energy, so it's not like it's beyond the realm of possibilities. But I still want to be like, okay, I hope in your next issue you explain a little bit better.
I will say this still, for his first out as a writer, Michael Dorn is still being consistently impressive. If anything, he's being consistently good.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, the writing is solid.
Yeah,
the writing is solid, and I have no issue with the art. Not like Cyborg.
Nah,
I'm sorry, I will not let that go.
Even touching that anymore.
I will never let that go.
For most people aren't either. You shouldn't. Bad art can hinder a good story.
It really can.
Superman's got enough problems right now. Just ask how him and Connor are doing.
Ooh, petty. Uber petty.
Man, that was my favorite thing about that thing, where Keith's like, Kella, he's been missing for 2 weeks, right? And you're just now coming. It's like, yeah, I really need to get with Connor. Callow, he's been missing for 2 weeks. It's the first time you've noticed.
That is sad. That does kind of.
It's now. That's not fault.
But it does kind of survey the point. It's like Connor left and no one knew. That's like, wow. It's like, how right was he in that, just leaving and going somewhere else? And 2 weeks later, anybody seen Connor? Man, dude been gone. You just ain't noticed. But no.
He's like, he's over there. It's like, no, that's John, different jacket.
Right. It's like, well, what about Power Girl? It's Kara. It's like, I don't go by Power Girl. It's a whole. When did this happen? A while back. But no, it was a good issue. I am liking the Michael Dorn run so far. So I got no issue with it. It's
only 6 issues, which I'm okay with. A lot of stuff. I think what a lot of people are learning over in the comic industry right now is, if someone's got a story to tell, don't give them an ongoing. Give them 6 issues, and if it continues to be a consistent seller, then you extend it. But just give them a good 6 issues. Like, that's what a lot of the newer books are doing. Like, Hawk Girl's only 6 issues.
Yeah, fair point. Although they need to give that a proper story, but I digress. Go ahead.
Yep. Jumping on over to Image, we are looking at Dead Lucky number 7. This picks up right after Supermassive. This is written by Melissa Flores with art by French Carlo Magno, colors by Maddie Iacano, and lettering by Becca Carey. So, as I said, this picks up, starts a brand new storyline. BB is now part of a counterterrorism paramilitary group. Somebody goes home. They're still reeling from the previous war that the city went through by the previous police regime. which is what now BB is also a part of. And she ends up running into an Ultramate, which may have powers similar to hers, but fire-based.
Right.
No name has been given for this one yet.
Awkward. If there was ever a time for this issue was awkward, like, yeah, you're not the only one. It's like you're alive, yeah, but you're not the only one with powers. But I thought that was a good twist at the end. I was kind of a little bit concerned because they were starting to do a lot more of the backstory. Whenever they go into backstories, I'm like, oh, either somebody's gonna die or we're gonna see a reemergence of somebody. And I'm glad I was actually right about one thing, because I do like the Dead Lucky story out of the Image comics, especially from the Massiveverse. So I am glad that it did work out that way. I thought it was going to be a whole different type of cheesy, corny way, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, we're still doing pretty good with them.
Yeah.
Moving on over, we have Rogue Sun number 14. This is written by Ryan Perot, art by Abel and Marco Renna, colors by Natalia Marquise, and lettering by Becca Carey. So Dylan and his dad are stuck in the Soul Stone because bodies have been traded, and now they're on the run because the guy that swapped bodies with Dylan has put a bounty on their head. So they are hunted by their own ancestors. Meanwhile, the family is discussing Dylan's constant current change in attitude and what to do with him. And then at the end, we run into a more familiar face within the Sunstone.
That was still interesting. Like, hey,
Dad.
That was funny as far as just, wait a minute. So you're being hunted by former wielders of the Sunstone in order for Caleb to keep your body. And it's like the one person that your dad doesn't want to go to is his dad. Nothing screams daddy issues. But no, it was good. It was a good read.
Plus, we get to see a Viking version of the Rogue Sun, which I thought was pretty neat. Although it does illustrate why you never should have horns on your helmet.
That part. He's like, I will send you to Valhalla, and gone.
And pretty good. Continue to be good. Massiveverse just always continues to impress. I love it to death.
Yeah.
Moving over to Marvel, we have Moon Knight number 26. This is written by Jed MacKay, the man who remembers everything. God's writer, page writer, because we are also previewing Gods, which is going to be coming out, by Jonathan Hickman. Art by Federico Sabatini. Colors by Rachel Rosenberg, and lettering by Travis Lenaham. Hunter's Moon goes and help out the Mole Men because they asked for his help because Vibertron, was that his name?
Yeah, that's his name.
Vibertron has entered the Mole Men territory and is trying to take control of them. So Hunter Moon goes to help because Moon Knight's busy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we are getting a therapy session with Hunter Moon's civilian persona and Moon Knight's therapist.
She gets a lot of hours.
She does. I think she's just on call to the Midnight Mission. This one, I'm almost certain there's a portal in her house that just opens up. It's like, oh, it's session time. Okay.
Right.
But it's cool. We get to get caught up with Hunter's Moon. We haven't messed with him in a while. We get to see that he can still channel the spirits of previous Fists of Khonshu, including the very first one. Vibertron is a D-list one-shot villain from Moon Knight's past. I guarantee it.
Pretty much.
It's just being used to further the story. Not too much to say about this. I still dig it. Just not a lot happened, but like I said, it's good to be catching up with Hunter's Moon.
At the same time as the whole idea is like, I don't have any friends, but I guess I have to make one. So they are kind of biting off a little bit of Mark's first time with a therapist. But then again, let's be honest, original introductions are always weird.
Yes. As for the gods thing, I don't know what to make of it. I'm not a big mystical person in terms of story reading.
It's interesting. It's Maybe I just have to give it a second. Like I said, it's a preview, so sometimes previews are hit or miss, but I'll still give it a shot.
Moving on over to Invincible Iron Man number 8. This is written by Jerry Duggan, art by Juan Jerry, colors by Brian Valenza, and lettering by Joe Carmanagan. So why are we reading Invincible Iron Man? Because neither one of us really read this book. You're right. We don't normally.
Right.
But we do when it pertains to the X-Men and how closely tied this is getting to it.
Right.
Because this is leading up to the impending wedding of Emma and Tony. And now I know what Emma's game is.
Right.
Emma's going to make Tony the Black King and usurp Sebastian Shaw.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be interesting.
That's
as
the power
Black
play for Emma. That is the point of them getting married.
It's him to be the Black King. I was like, Tony Stark as the Black King. Wow. I'm not against it. It's an interesting dynamic because we would never think of all the people to play that role would be him. And to have Emma Frost put him there. That's saying something personally. But I did dig this. I dig this as far as, of course, for all those who don't know, Tony Stark has kind of been, he's broke. I forgot who took over. What's his face?
Fei Long.
Yeah, thank you. Fei Long owns Stark Industries, including the suits. He was supposed to give up his suit, owing to use it to save Emma Frost, who made some type of deal with Kingpin, dressed up like Viserys of Westeros from Game of Thrones, which I thought was interesting. Of course, for all those that don't know, that's from the Krakoa, which is going back into the Fall of X, which if you keep up with the well, that too, Obi. But for all those that are keeping up with it, it is the fall. This basically follows what happened after Krakoa, especially with Orchis going through and having a run through of the place. We still don't know what Emma Frost and Kingpin have agreed to, but the fact that Emma did kind of help out Tony to the point to where Tony had Emma take it off in his suit, and now that Stark is back with Fei Long. It's an interesting story. That's why I was like, you know what? I might actually keep up with this because I like where this is going, especially leading up, like Joe said, leads up to the wedding itself. But it was a good read. I dig it.
I did like at the very end where he just like calls out Fei Long's like, go ahead and kill me. I'm an event. You will not make it out of the office because you'll have killed an Avenger in the streets of New York.
Pretty much. And he was
like,
right. He's like, you kill me and you won't make it out of New York alive. Which he's right, though. I mean, even though the Sentinels, it's still weird to see Sentinels in Iron Man armor. It's just,
and on top of that, their Space Division Sentinels are just giant war machines.
Pretty much, it's weird, but like I said, it's different. And right now, different is good. But yes, definitely keeping up with this because Fall of X looks like it's going to be a hell of a story. Hopefully, better than Sins of Sinister.
On top of that, it's something that we haven't seen in a while with Marvel. We haven't seen a line-wide event happen in quite a while.
Yeah, we really haven't. To where it encompasses more than just X-Men. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, the fallout is affecting basically everybody. I mean, Obi's right.
Obi is right. I'll give him that. He is right.
You can't fault that. But no, we haven't seen an event. I mean, even AEX didn't really have a lot of fallout in the grand scheme of things. This is affecting quite a many books because of the fallout of Fall of X and the Hellfire Gala.
Yeah, fair enough. But if this is what we get to look forward to, the wedding is going to be something else.
Oh, yeah. Rounding us out is Fall of X-Men number 25. This is written by Jerry Dugan with art by Stefano Caselli, art by colors by Marty Garcia, and designed by Tom Muir and Jay Bowen. So let's talk about disrespectful fights again. It's that time of year.
Ooh.
Chris, if you're still watching this goes in the meter of disrespectful fighting for thing.
This definitely is going on the list of disrespectful ass whoopings. But go ahead, Joe.
So, for those of you that are unaware, this is not a New Mutant getting ready to kill this poor Orochis dude.
Mhm.
This is Kitty Pryde. If you need to go back and read the 80s comic series, The Adventures of Wolverine and Shadowcat,
Mhm.
what happened there is Shadowcat was taken by Wolverine's ninja master, Olgan, and trained to basically be the ultimate killer.
Pretty much.
Which she goes to the X Mansion and gets her old. This is true.
Mm-hmm.
Goes and gets her old samurai swords, and just lays waste to her Orochis unit after she's just been on a giant hit list all the way through. Also, this book deals with several other things. We see that Miss Marvel has been taken back home by Emma. Emma has erased the memories of Kamal's death from her family.
Yep.
So only the superhero community is aware of Kamal's death, but the family does not have to have the pain and grief of their daughter dying, plus the judgment of her wanting to go back out. Miss Marvel wants to continue helping the X-Men despite not knowing what her X-Gene power is, even though we all do. We catch up with Dr. Stasis and Cyclops, who's had his eyes stapled closed.
Yeah.
To let us know what's going on there. Forge comes to an oh shit moment because he realizes, oh no, Krakoa's down. That means all the Vault children are free.
And they're pissed.
And they are not happy. And then we just go back to Kitty, who's running all these assassination missions and trying to save as many mutants as she can, or at least put out a notes of like, hey, we're still out there. We're still going to help. But no more kid gloves.
Oh,
we're not a defense response force anymore.
Oh, no. She was having a John Wick moment. That was it's like, wait a minute. Were you Shadowcat? Don't tell anybody, kid. It's like, you are. And then the whole fight between, of course, the whole fight with the guards. And it's like the disrespect they had. It's like, wait a minute. I thought all mutants were rounded up. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, this person ain't shit. I was like, okay. And then she immediately got pissed off, and all that training came back. And all I can say
one of those like, so we had rules on the island of Krakoa. First was kill no man. We are no longer following those rules. And then she proceeds to put a machine gun in some guy's mind, throws one dude into another dude. And I felt really bad for that one guy who was just there at the wrong place and time. It's like, look, I want no part of this. You guys saved me. I am sorry this happened to you. I am here purely because I needed the job. And she's like, oh, honey, I am so sorry. Snaps his neck.
That was just, I don't know if that was just mercy or the fact of sarcasm followed up with, yeah, I don't care.
Although, I mean, she's sitting there crying as she does it because I think she generally feels bad for this dude. It's like, honey, I have to do it, but you were just at the wrong place and wrong time. I'm so sorry.
Or the thermal grenade guys, that was messed up. As she walked off, and again, guys, if you read the issue, damn, that's about the best way I could put that. If you read the issue, damn, because a lot of people really don't give Kitty Pryde credit, but the fact that she has the ability to phase through things combined with ninja training, that makes her effing dangerous. Think Nightcrawler if Nightcrawler just had no qualms about killing people.
It did. It was called Night Vereen, remember?
Yeah.
The Vereen thing where they was like, they always forget the tail.
Yeah, that's what I was like. It's just the whole point. It's like for Silver Fact Man, like some people really don't give some mutants the credit they should give because how terrifying they could be if pushed. And Kitty
there
is
are very few things that are terrifying. It's like Daredevil with guns. That's more terrifying than Frank Castle could ever hope to be. Kitty Pryde, very mad with swords. That's even scarier. It's like Ninja Kitty is terrifying Kitty.
But the ability to phase through things, that's worse than any horror movie. You're not safe anywhere.
She threw a dude into a dude.
That's ticked off. You phased them. That is a Hancock moment. It's like I'm gonna shove you in him, and him's gonna go into you, and it's like, okay, slowly back away. But no, it was a good issue, especially with Fall of X. Everything that they're doing with this, I really do like it because like you said, we're seeing this from multiple angles on different other comic book lines. So I am just looking forward to what's next. Although I think this is going into what? Correct me if I'm wrong. This goes into November?
I think so.
Okay, because like I said, this storyline is going to go in November, I believe. But no, Shadow Cat Attack, that's a problem.
Yeah, brief mention here, Spider-Man Annual. I picked it up on a whim because it has to do more with Ben and Janine and what's going on with them. Janine tries to make a prison break using her ghost mask and shadow mask. And Pete has to take a demon in because the demons in Limbo the demons from Limbo embassy were harassing the folks in New York. And so Madeline's there doing like paperwork and she is just like at her end's rope. That's basically what it was, Vaughn.
That's what it was. He's right. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, so on that one, the only reason I picked it up is just more Ben Reilly and shows more what's going on with them. They do try the prison break, and they did not take into account the fact that because Janine's Hallows Eve powers are limbo-based, Madeline knew what was going on the whole time, and they don't make it very far. And Madeline's like, no, I'm going to let Ben go once he serves his sentence, not before.
Yeah.
Which demon was it that did this? Like, honestly, I didn't get his name, and they all look the same. First off, Pete, that's racist. And then, like, 5 demons that, like, look all identical just glower at him.
Wow.
It's like, and Janine, I'm going to let you keep your powers, but you're both banned from the embassy. Pete, I'm only banning you for a while because right now I'm up to my neck in paperwork and I'm really annoyed and I don't need this BS. Pete is now just like, you know what? That's fair. Madeline to Janine's like, you're not coming back and you're not welcome back until I release Ben from his sentence. He will have a fair sentence. No, she is being very straightforward and diplomatic about this. She tells him point blank, his sentence is fair. It is not eternity. It is not stupidly long, but he will be here for a while. And when his time is done, we will release him. Not beforehand. It's like, she's like, Pete, go home. He's like, God.
Like, you gotta tell me. It's a you ain't gotta tell me twice situation.
But I do like that, at least in this thing, and it's very brief, but Madeline's just like, not evil. He's not here forever. He's not here for an insanely stupidly long time, but he is going to do his time, and then he's going to be free to go, and then he's your problem.
Damn. Well, just to give him fair warning.
Yeah. So picked it up. It was fun. It just was kind of an end capper on some things. I know Halloween's getting another book soon, 5-part miniseries book soon, closer to Halloween. I think it has to do with the God stuff.
Gotcha.
No, that was made for comics.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, we also do want to show love to Rick's Comic City. Why? Because they show us love. So if you are in the Middle Tennessee area, they do have 3 locations. One in Nashville off Lebanon Road, the other one in Clarksville at Madison Street, and of course, Locker Nerd at Fort Campbell. They also voted Nashville's #1 place for comic books, as well as you can check them online at rickscomiccity.com, where you can buy or trade. Getting your comp pull list, as me and Joe both do occasionally from time to time. I actually need to go back. I haven't been in a while, but definitely check them out. Let them know we sent you. It doesn't get you any discounts, but again, it lets you know that they show love. And as Obi also shows love,
he wants the new Golden Books of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. He's telling you now.
He does love Moon Girl. I did show Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, by the way. But so with that being said, guys, again, if you're in Middle Tennessee, thank you. If you are in the Middle Tennessee area, definitely do check out Rick's Comic Book City. However, if you're not in the Middle Tennessee area, guys, definitely check out your local comic book store, your local library. as they are the last places to where you can get comic books, mangas, animes, multimedia. Again, these are places that need us to survive. I understand the idea of online books, of getting things through Comixology, or like Obi, you just wait for stuff to come to you because you're a baby. But again, support your local libraries, support your local comic stores. If you're in the Nashville area, definitely check out Rick's Comic Book City. But with that being said, as we wrap up, Joe, you want to know people what, aside from Obi letting his displeasure be known, you want to tell people what you're doing?
Probably more Street Fighter on Monday if I'm still awake. Working sick is never going to be a fun thing, but it happens.
Yeah.
So we'll go through that. Other than that, just, I'm around. Hit me up on Facebook and Twitter, or watch the things I do on Twitch from time to time.
And yes, you can catch Joe on his Twitch channel, Joe Italian last name, his YouTube channel at Total Justice Gaming. Definitely catch him on there. Definitely like, share, subscribe, let people know about it as he's working his way up the Street Fighter chain. Once I get my PS5, I'm going to be joining him, but I'm going to be doing a crap load of practice. As for me, guys, you can find me BlackFox447 on mostly all the socials. I do reviews on everything that I read, that I play, that I write, and gym stuff because I like to keep myself in fighting shape, or at least try to keep myself from not becoming in shape. Whichever one's first. The link at the bottom, guys, let me make that just a wee bit bigger for you guys to see. If you'll copy and paste that link into your browser, we'll take you to our link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of our podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, the Offense Podcast. Our podcast can be seen wherever podcasts are found. Joe, we want to know where they're
at. Stitcher, until that closes, Spotify, Google Music, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and there's one other one, but I forget. Not on iTunes. We're not paying $15 for views. That's probably the way to go, but still, I have enough people know my credit card information. I don't need Apple to have it too.
At the same time, guys, we're also on Opulence Radio and Always Record TV for your viewing pleasure. Definitely check us out, as we love what we do, and if we could make this a permanent job, we definitely would. And Obi would appreciate that too. But as we wrap this up, guys, again, I just want to sit there and say we are in the middle of con season, so I do have 3 simple rules. Rule number 1, always respect the cosplayers. These are people. This is a group of individuals that have taken painstakingly hours to make something or have something adjusted or purchase something. But it takes a lot of guts, guys, to come out in front of a crowd to be able to display their passions, and they don't need to be gawked at, looked over, stalked upon, or just overall insulted. So, in the words of Roadhouse, be nice. You'll get a whole lot farther than being put out on your ass. And as Obi loves to point that out because, yeah, I know. At the same time, guys, rule number 2, wash your ass. Simply put, you're going to be around people. Use soap, use deodorant. It's that simple. And number 3, enjoy yourself and don't be a dick, because there's plenty of people around there, because I've seen friendships get made at cons, lifelong friendships from people just sharing fandoms. So again, guys, it's not that hard to simply be freaking nice. With that being said, guys, we hopefully will be back here next Friday, Sam Get Bit time, Sam Get Bit channel, with news throughout the week, as well as anything else that may appear, including Klingon boy bands. I will never get away from that. But Joe, any last words, sir, before we call tonight?
I got to go and see if I can't finish Scooby-Doo Meets Kiss.
With that being said, guys, he's Joe, I'm Will. This has been the Get Bit Podcast.
It's got good music in it.
Thank you all for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other, and have a good night. Peace.